and welcome to Mangaroos. I'm here, joined by my friends,
Space Pirate Jason.
And a woman that burns like paper, Alex.
And I'm Mark, and I'll be your host for this very special episode. You know, normally we just talk about whatever is on our mind, whatever we've been reading lately and whatnot. But this one is a little bit different than our normal fare. It's a special memorial episode for Matsumoto Leiji, who passed away in February. I don't know exactly when this will air, but it's probably quite a few weeks after that. So it has been a little bit. And I think not only was there a national outpouring of grief in Japan when he passed away, definitely one of the greats, both with manga, with anime, with pretty much everything to do with this genre that this podcast covers. But there have also been several other podcasts who have done special episodes as well. And as I have been a big fan for, oh gosh, can I say decades now? I guess I can.
You are old enough.
I am old enough because I guess it's not one decade, it's going to be two.
You got a lot of decades.
I got a lot of decades to give. So I've been a fan for decades now, and I really wanted to take this opportunity to just kind of celebrate his life and work, which I hope someone does for me when I pass away. So please.
There will be a podcast about you, Mark.
Take notes if you're doing this.
Maybe we'll still be around. I don't want you to go first. I don't know.
I don't know why. Why is it got to be me? Well, he's done a lot. So let's see. I was reviewing on his life. He was born 1938, which is older than any of us here, probably older than anyone listening here on this podcast now, or maybe not. Grandma,
you think
I love
we have any 85-year-old listeners?
Grandma, if you're listening, yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know how you
have a very young grandma, Mark.
A very sprightly grandma. But no, he's delivered so many works. I think Uchu Senkai Yamato, Space Battleship Yamato, is one that many people know. The deeper I dug into that, the more that I found that there was a lot of controversy over whether he really owned that work or not, because I think he came into it halfway through and he designed the characters and the ships and whatnot, but it was already going before he joined the team that was working on that. So it's not
it's
technically
kind of like
his
how
work.
Fergie gets all the credit for the Black Eyed Peas, but actually it's like the third album before she joined.
I know.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's that. There's Galaxy Express 39, and then today one of my favorites actually is Space Pirate Captain Harlock. Is the book that we're reading, Volume 1. I brought some special show and tell. So these are postcards, which you can't really see.
Oh wow!
But
and he's there with his skull and bones.
Exactly.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, you can't see these, but if you're watching the podcast, but this is from Galaxy Express 999.
What's her name again? Oh, sorry, I forgot her name. Like I should have looked that up.
The girl with the blonde hair, and then a guy who looks like Daibaku. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's another one. This is also from Galaxy Express 39, but it's clearly Captain Harlock, because what Matsumoto did that was so incredible. I think it's something that not many Japanese authors have been able to successfully recreate, is create this like superstar system where his most famous, most lovable characters, they appear in all of his different works, and this man has a career that spans 40-50 years.
I didn't realize that. That's cool. So he has like his own little shared universe?
Indeed, it's a little bit of a Matsumoto Leiji omniverse.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah, one of the things that's really super cool about Space Pirate Captain Harlock is that this came out. This is 1977, so this is the same year that Star Wars comes out, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But this really kicks off the space boom in manga and anime in Japan, and it's something that has brought us. Well, some of the hits that we've all come to know and love, like Evangelion and whatnot. But I think what we can find is that Matsumoto Leiji had a lot to do with popularizing that in the country and beyond with all of his works. So today, I just want to jump right into Space Pirate Captain Harlock, which is basically about. I think he's a pretty cool guy who is a space pirate captain.
I mean, just that is cool. Like,
it's
you
pretty
didn't
hard
have to
not
do
to be
anything
cool.
beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, I can only aspire to have something as amazing as that on my business card. Who flies around on a ship with his merry crew. It sounds a little bit like One Piece, but it's not. It's in space. And they get into, I don't even want to say zany adventures. They're pretty badass adventures. All of them.
They're not super zany.
No, there's not. This is a serious serious sci-fi shit right here.
This first volume was surprisingly grounded. Like nothing too crazy happens. Wait,
There's
no.
just like some background props like on the spaceship. You're like, do you really have that on your spaceship?
Like the wooden steering wheel.
Yeah. And like random like cup noodle.
And like,
that was a nice
cat, and like an old lady.
The old lady who comes out of nowhere and then becomes a recurring character.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're sort of jumping ahead here a little bit.
It is indeed, and we'll get on that later. But I have to ask, what did you think of Volume 1, Alex? I want to hear your thoughts first.
It was very interesting because it's also it's been a while since I read something that was from this time period. So it's like always a bit nostalgic when you read something that's older, just because the pacing is so different. So I don't know, it's like a different experience. I don't know. Like I start to see like bell bottoms and like peace signs.
And just like backgrounds with random like wavy lines.
Right. And think about like a world that was simpler, maybe. Maybe a little bit simpler than today.
Yeah, I hear that.
A world before smartphones. A world before anatomy references were readily available.
That's for sure. Some of these characters just look like basically potatoes.
I mean,
in a great way.
Yeah, this is gonna come back in other in other questions, but you can really tell what the author is good at drawing and is struggling at drawing. And it's very quaint. So I thought it's like I mean, I enjoyed the parts that are very well drawn. So
can I ask you this question? Would it surprise you to hear that Matsumoto Leiji got his start as a shoujo manga artist? And some of his earliest work was writing for a genre that's very different than the sci-fi.
Except like during that time period, it's like all the shoujo manga was written by men, so it's actually not that surprising that it was written by like older men.
Well,
like,
for the art style, like how does it compare to the others?
Style. Although the eyelashes and like the eye shots, like there's a lot of. This is also going to come up in another question, but there's a lot of alluring eyes.
Alluring eyes.
Definitely.
That's where he tells the story. Okay, well, Jason, what did you think?
Yeah, similar to Alex, I almost felt more like I was watching a TV show from the 70s than I was like... It felt more like that than reading a manga from like any more recent decade. But I kept thinking of like, Jefferson Airplane playing in the background and just like... just like those old cartoons from the 70s where the colors are kind of all watercolory and like it's just a lot of random long pauses. But more than anything, it reminded me of watching like an episode of The Muppet Show. I felt like this was a Jim Henson creation.
There are some characters that look like they could be in a Jim Henson
Can you imagine if you were watching The Muppet Show and Kermit the Frog just burst into flames in front of you? Killing Fozzie? That would be wild.
I'm on fire. No, I thought it was really charming and also surprisingly subversive. And
it seemed very political.
Extremely. Like it's right in your face about that. And just I kept coming back to the idea of like kids reading this in 1977. We're living in such a different world. There's no internet. There's like 5 TV channels. There's no video games. So reading something like this when it was being published must have been so revolutionary. Like no wonder it lingered in people's imaginations for so long, right? So it's a pretty powerful manga to return to, or for me to visit for the first time. But definitely a product of a different time for sure. For all the good and bad that comes with that.
Completely agree. And just to dig into that a little bit deeper. So I think we can all agree that there are some things that Matsumoto is good at drawing. ships and shit, and then some things that he's not really good at drawing. Characters.
Women and shit.
But at the same time, the characters that he create are extremely memorable, and they're fan favorites that have lasted for decades on down. Like, even right now, my son is obsessed with this show called Shinkarion. Which is like the show where Shinkansen transform into robots and whatnot. And the thing that they do is they do these collabo with popular anime. And yes, of course, they did Evangelion, so there's got some Evangelion like transforming into Shinkansen and whatnot. And then they also brought in the characters from Galaxy Express 39 as well.
Makes sense.
So this is still going on today. Space Train coming in. It's pretty badass. So of all the characters that come in Volume 1, I mean, I guess you could pick someone from Earth if you wanted to, but I want to just zoom in on the colorful crew on the Arcadia, which is the captain's ship. Did you have a favorite character or one that you identified with? Jason, let's hear from you first.
I had a whole bunch, and they're all the kind of lumpen weirdos that, for some reason, Captain Harlock chooses to associate with. Like, he's this super badass space pirate, and all of his buddies are like drunken weirdos just rolling around in the corridors. So I loved all of them, but specifically, I loved the one, like the what do you call him? Like the second captain, the second in command.
The second in command.
Yattaran, yeah.
Yeah. He's always too busy to do anything, but he's building like little models and
I just
stuff.
wondered, how did he get that promotion? Like, how did that happen?
How was he the best guy available?
I was just thinking he was the only one who actually went to pilot school, so none of these other goops know how to fly the ship.
Oh man, but
they seem to know how to fire cannons.
Yeah, no, they're really good. Like when the going gets tough, they get the job done, definitely.
They're a bunch of work hard and play hard type of fellows. I really love the old lady who's I guess the cook. And then also the bird who also extremely looks like a Muppet, whose name is Tori-san. And like
Mr. Bird
clearly has some kind of traumatic backstory that we haven't quite learned.
Seriously, I wanted to know the traumatic backstory more than anything.
When he's
they talk about it for like 5 pages.
And it just like keeps crying, like little manly albatross tears. It's bad.
And they say like multiple times, Tori-san had some real shit happen back in the night ship. And
he's got like that little band-aid around his beak.
And his neck is like the width of a pencil. He's legitimately a pencil neck.
Although everyone has a neck the width of a pencil.
Or the width of like a tree trunk. Yeah, it's true. Anyway, I loved everybody except the boy, the main boy.
Tarashi. Daiba Tarashi.
He was kind of like a sullen tween who I didn't have much time for. But luckily, he doesn't really... I guess he's like the self-insert.
He doesn't do anything. He is like the reader, right?
He's like the witness to everything.
Just like
what about you, Alex? Who did you love the most?
So this character captured my heart the moment she drank a bottle of sake and then tossed it aside.
Oh, yeah.
Mime, yeah?
Mine,
the
right?
Weird alien lady.
Yeah.
By the way, can we just say, I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about this later, but has it, since 1977, was it made illegal to have characters that speak exclusively in katakana? Because that was a nightmare for me to read. I'm sure I've encountered it elsewhere, but man, I was not having
every so often in modern manga.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
if there's like an alien or like I don't know if you ever
robots do it.
Yeah, it's a trope for aliens and robots.
Yeah, it's a trope, and like not, maybe it wasn't Ajin, but it's like the one where they all go into like a different world and then like kill each other. It's like an alternate.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably tons of examples.
There's a lot of them that are like robots or like aliens usually do that.
It's actually a really cool thing that you can do in Japanese, is to like differentiate the way a character talks. But man, it sure is not fun for me to read. So I would like to know how they localized it. I think that would be cool to see. But anyway. So that's...
Wingdings.
Wingdings?
Yes, because everyone knows how to read those.
Oh, yeah.
Papyrus script. Anyway, sorry. So
what about you, Mark? Who's your favorite?
Oh, without question, my favorite is Captain Harlock. Basically, when I have these postcards behind me on my wall, so whenever I'm about to make decisions, I can always ask myself, well, what would Captain Harlock do? This is mostly about whether to get a haircut or not. And if the answer is that this would make me look more like Captain Harlock, then I'd do it.
Mark, I don't see the beautiful sweeping bangs over one side of your face.
That's true.
That's just because his headphones are pushing back.
My headphones are pushing back. So if you do the beautiful bangs, then it gets in your face and it's itchy and scratchy. So I don't really know how he got that scar, but it might be from sweeping his bangs out of his eyes too many times with like long fingernails. If you're not careful, you're gonna get the scratch. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, he's my favorite character. But I wanted to ask you guys, what did you think about Captain Harlock? Do you think he really is a badass space pirate, or is he just a delusional oji-san with serious issues?
Oh man, can I say both?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. That's what I wanted to say both.
I think. So I'm very conflicted, right? Because on the one, like I already mentioned, he associates with like the weirdest possible people.
The possible dregs of society?
Yeah, they don't look like the most effective. Like, they make fun of everyone on Earth for being too soft, and then they're like in their spaceships taking bath time all the time. Like,
they're literally asleep in the corridor because they're too drunk. And also they're like 3'8".
Yeah.
So it's cool. So every once in a while he'll say something or like strike a pose that is so badass that I had to just like pause and take a breath and then read it again. Like when he shows the cockpit of his ship for the first time, right? And he's like, "When I die, I'm going to die here."
Oh, yeah. That was like, oh my God.
What? And there's a couple of moments where he
decided.
He's like the coolest guy in the world. But then at the same time, it's like, you know, his politics are a little weird. But 1977, he's like, "Hey, Tadashi, if you're really a man."
He does that a lot, yeah?
Yeah, you know, like there's a lot of that stuff. And Tadashi's like, "I'm 12 years old. I don't know what I'm doing."
I think you're friends with my father, but also my father was friends with the president of the world. I just really...
I know.
It's very difficult
very
situation.
Weird position.
He was. I'm torn between two worlds.
I don't know. Having only read Volume 1, I can't tell how to feel about Captain Harlock, but I can say that if I was a listless 12-year-old boy and Captain Harlock abducted me, I would probably be like, "Yeah, let's hang out, man. This seems pretty cool." So, you know,
Yeah,
he's got some stuff going for him.
I love how when he meets him, Tadashi, he says to him, like, "I will give you until this time. And if it goes past, it will be like we never met, or our fates were never meant to like intertwine." And I'm just like, what a weird way to, if you're like, "Hey, I like the cut of your jib, son. Like, just tell me if you want to be part of the crew." Like, he doesn't say it like that. He's like, if I don't hear from you, then it's like our paths were never meant to cross. Like, I don't know, it just seems very like weird to say to a 12-year-old so dramatically.
He's pretty fatalistic.
That feels like a bit of a shoujo manga thing.
It is like, it felt like pretty shoujo to me. It felt pretty romantic too. If some guy like hopped onto a spaceship, came over and saw me and was like, "Hey, you're not like the rest. You're different."
So that's another thing that makes me question, like, what does Captain Harlock see in Tadashi?
I know, right?
He's amazing.
Other than like a similar haircut, not a lot.
He sees a haircut.
I guess if he can mold these drunken hobos into a pirate crew, he can kind of work with anyone.
None of the hobos on his ship have the same cool hair.
No,
maybe they did though. What if that's the nightmare scenario? What if they all started like Tadashi?
For Captain Harlock, the look is where it all starts, and none of his other crew members have the look. So he's looking for someone who can take over the position of the head honcho position of Arcadia, and he finds Tadashi, who is the erstwhile son of one of his old friends. I really don't get that relationship, but sure, whatever. And then he pretty much, you know, he saves him, which is nice, and then he puts him back on dry land, takes him back to Earth, and says, you know, "Press this button if you want to ever meet again, and we'll come pick you up and take you away. It's a decision that you have to make for yourself." And I kind of expected him to press the button when he was in the middle of the parliamentary hearing.
Yeah, I know, seriously. Get me out of here.
Get me out. Boring. But he didn't. No, he did it outside, like a normal person. But yeah, I thought he was grooming him to be the next captain.
I mean, definitely, he's
I
definitely
think he is,
grooming him to be the next captain. But I just like, other than the haircut and like their body type, I don't see why. But
He's got this incredible wardrobe.
What if? Do we know like what planet does Captain Harlock come from?
Earth.
Earth,
100%.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's right. So then why doesn't anyone else on his ship look like a human being? Why do they all look like Oscar the Grouch?
Oscar. I think there's a little bit Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs thing going on. Just a little bit.
Okay, they're just little. I shouldn't make such fun of them. They're gold-hearted. Real
they're
salt
like
of the earth
they're like
types.
very like cartoony.
Extremely
them,
cartoonish.
Proportion. Yeah.
I don't know. There must be a name for this thing where the hero characters look very beautiful and tall and slim and like very striking,
and
elaborate
also the
poses.
evil people.
The evil people
as well?
too.
Yep.
Well, like the significant characters, and then
and
all
on
the
the
supporting
sidekicks,
cast
yeah.
are dwarves for some reason. Whatever that is, I love it.
Well, they did it in Lord of the Rings. Okay, so what do you think of Matsumoto Reiji's art style? And what was your favorite and least favorite panel? Alex, we'll go with you first.
So favorite is definitely every 2-page spread of the Arcadia.
Oh, yeah!
Because it happens, but maybe it doesn't happen enough sometimes, I feel.
It should just be all that all the
Yeah.
time. He probably shouldn't. They shouldn't allow him to draw anything else.
Yeah. And then my least favorite is like, well, I don't know. Actually, I thought this one was kind of hilarious. What is it? What's the name of that? Cusco or something?
Yeah, Cusco.
He's like, we need to get a guard for Cusco, and then Cusco immediately dies.
In the next, and they're like, "Why would we need to get him a guard?
The president of the world is like, well, bad news, he's dead.
Yeah, the guy's reaction is just like,
Sorry,
well, that's
I
no
died.
good.
And then because like Tadashi was like, he's just like, and then he's like, that's why I said we needed a guard. And I'm like, what? It just like felt, because it's so serious mostly, and this guy was like giving a speech, right, about like the Mayan or Inca,
right, in front of the world part of the
hieroglyphs in front of like the world. Like it was very, it
was pretty important.
Yeah, it was very important. And then he just gets like murdered immediately, and they're just like, oh well,
whoops, those muzzle. Well, and that kind of hints on a theme that I think we'll get into later, but everyone on Earth has pretty much given up on fighting back. It's just a sad state of affairs. But Jason, what did you think of the art style? Is there anything that really stood out to you, other than the spaceships, of course, which are absolutely incredible?
Yeah, but I loved a lot of the art style because it's that kind of weird, like Alex mentioned it earlier, right? It's the lack of any kind of real looking anatomy. It's just like really loosey, flowy, weirdly shaped 70s artwork.
It's kind of like an acid dream anatomy. Yeah.
Totally. Yes, that's exactly right. And it's so 70s, and I love that. My favorite page definitely is the page, speaking of that Cuzco guy, there's one page that's just a one-page spread of him standing in front of those hieroglyphics. And it would make an incredible poster because it's just I've never seen anything that looks quite like that. The line work is so tight on those hieroglyphics, and then he just, he takes up about 1/4 of the page in the lower corner, and it just pops off of the page. It looks incredible. I stared at that page for like a full minute.
Oh my gosh! And think, just put yourself into the shoes of Matsumoto and his assistants here in the 70s. You're driving. There's no internet that you can just like look up Mayan inscriptions or whatever.
The Encyclopedia Britannica.
Is that how they did it?
Yeah.
I assume so.
They bought from the door-to-door salesman. He did a really good job.
And then I'm sure there's a simple answer to this, but I don't know what it is. I would love to know how he did the shots of the galaxy, where it's like 2 black pages with millions of stars.
Oh, like a lot of these black with white on it is like you're actually putting like liquid correction ink.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it was white paper with black ink, and then they somehow like inverted the colors, but it's actually white ink.
A lot of the, like if you go to manga Gengaten, you usually see that it is white correction ink.
Wow, that's
been
awesome.
Oh, wow.
painted over black, Sumi.
And that impressed me almost as much as the ships. Just like the white on black, high contrast. Like,
Yeah.
and all the dials inside the ship.
Yeah, the dials are cool too.
Everything
I like there's
looks
one
so
page of just
analog.
dials.
Yeah.
Like-
Oh, I love that stuff. And then I guess I don't have a single least favorite page, I think, but I really was not a fan of all the, there's a bunch of pages where like the frames are just really vertical. Like there'll be like 4 vertical frames just like slicing across the page, or panels, I should say.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy that. I didn't think that was a good way to lay
Yeah, I
out
don't
the
think it
story.
brings much to it. Yeah, I'm on
No.
one right now. Oh, you can't see it.
There's a
but
bunch of
yeah.
those. It doesn't really flow very well, and yeah, so those kind of bogged me down when I was reading. But yeah, other than that, and I got to say, I mentioned it already once, but there's another full page spread where you see the cockpit for the first time, and it's like, it looks like something out of the first Alien movie almost. Like there's just all this really analog space equipment, and then an old timey pirate ship steering wheel right in the middle of it. It's just super cool. I loved it. So yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, one thing I'd like to point out that this manga does that you never see in manga these days is they'll have these like 1-page spreads where it's got Captain Harlock striking a badass pose and maybe the Arcadia in the background, and then there's like a little scroll with what is I don't know if it's a theme song or if it's like this refrain, that they keep putting it in there.
It shows up at the beginning and end of like every chapter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never see that anymore. Probably because it's just fallen out of fashion.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's almost like Tolkien-esque though, isn't it?
It's very like I don't know if you played like Dragon Quest like in the beginning, like they would always have like a little summary of like our heroes like upon the like lake of blah 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 they found
totally,
the
yeah.
princess blah 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 or something like that, and it'd just be a screen of like a castle and then just like text.
It's a little bit of an RPG synopsis.
Yeah.
For you. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. I know we've talked about the series, and I think we all enjoyed it. It was a little bit of a blast from the past. But how familiar were you with Matsumoto's works before we started reading this for this particular memorial podcast? Alex, how about you?
In middle school, I watched Galaxy Express 3-9. So I knew some of the characters kind of, but I mean, it was in middle school, so it was a very long time ago. And then I didn't read like any of that manga, although I did see, like I had subscribed to like, what was it, like the America Jump or something? I don't know. One of like back when there were magazines, I
when there were
did
physical
subscribe to
distribution
like
magazines.
a lot of Viz published ones, and I think Galaxy 3-9 was in one of those magazines, so I caught like a little bit of it, but I never really like delved deeper into it, just because like I don't know, sci-fi wasn't really a huge thing. I was more of a fantasy person, so I guess I still am more of a fantasy person, so I didn't really go after it. But then I did go on that boat that he designed, and I think that boat's super cool.
Oh, is that the one that's
it's in the
by
one Tokyo
Asakusa?
Harbor.
Oh, is it Tokyo Harbor? Where?
Yeah, and it leaves from Hinode Pier. So all of you listeners who are going to Tokyo, it goes from Odaiba, Hinode to Odaiba, and does like little circle rounds, and it looks like a really cool spaceship. So if you want to ride a really cool boat, go ride that boat.
And it was
wanna ride a
designed
really cool
by
boat.
Matsumoto Leiji?
Yeah,
Wow,
he designed
wow.
it.
Oh, have you not seen it, Mark? It looks amazing. It's all like
Yeah,
glass
you need to
topped.
ride that boat. Take
I gotta
his
get the
family. Go ride that boat.
I gotta ride that boat. That's what I know what I'm
It's
doing
all
tomorrow.
enclosed, so it's very safe, even for small children. so-
Good. Perfect for small children. Put them on the
Yeah.
space boat. It's all in
Yeah.
glass. It's all gravy, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Jason, what about you? How familiar with you his works?
I was familiar with his legacy and how important he was, and I knew he was one of those mangaka that you're supposed to read to get educated, Like I went through a big phase where I read a whole bunch of Tezuka stuff, not because I super loved reading it, but just because
your professor assigned it to you.
Yeah, basically. So like, I don't know, Shigeru Mizuki, or like, I don't know, maybe Rumiko Takahashi, like just like super legendary, influential people, right?
Oh man, you don't enjoy her? Just
no, I love her. I love her. Maison Ikoku
okay.
is probably my favorite series ever. But like I just never really got to his stuff, and but I used to go to karaoke with this one friend of mine many years ago, and he was a really good singer, and he would always sing the theme song from Galaxy.
I just know it because of karaoke.
Right, and it's one of the most incredible theme songs. Maybe you can put in like a 5-second clip of it
Just
here
a
when you're
little
editing the
A
podcast.
never-ending journey.
Take you on it. Well, I'm not going to say it. But, so yeah, I and then living in Japan, I've lived here now for a long time, and it's kind of hard to find his work either in a new bookstore or in a book off. It's just like it's not super high in demand. You kind of have to like go out and look for it, and I never got serious about it. I even saw the stupid Yamato live action movie starring Kimutaku.
Kimutaku, yeah, 2013.
Was it
Oh no, I remember that. I remember that.
I literally fell asleep in the theater watching it.
Yeah.
It was not good.
There's a reason that we do a podcast about Japanese manga and not Japanese movies.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean,
Amen,
I
brother.
agree with that.
But I'm kind of kicking myself now because I definitely wish I would have come to this when I was a little younger, a little more hungry for this kind of like, old timey adventure story, because it's pretty great. But I think coming to it at this age, I'm just like,
I definitely see that, because you're kind of, I think also, even if you were to come at it from a young age, it would still be a generation or two too old for us. Like we would have been unable to come to it at our age because it would have already been past. It would be like reading, I don't know, like early Superman comics or something like that. It's just something. It set the groundwork for Evangelion, for a lot of the stuff that we enjoyed during our coming of age time. But it wasn't. It's not our generation. So that's another thing that. I think we'll get into a little bit later, but let's just talk about this period now. So this came out, Volume 1 dropped in January 1977. This is before any of us were born, before most of the people that are on the internet are born.
So this actually predates Star Wars.
It predates Star Wars. It was 4 months before Star Wars hit theaters.
That's wild.
And this is kind of a question for both of you and for all of you listeners out there. Like, what is it about this period in the mid-70s that people had such romantic feelings about space? Like, what is it that drew people to this setting, for stories, for art, for literature, for music, whatever? Jason, let's hear from you first.
Well, it's such a vibrant time, right? So mid to late 70s, you're coming off of, I mean, the moon landing wasn't that long ago. The Cold War, the Cold War had not quite happened.
No, like
yet.
I mean,
but you're coming
I don't know.
out of
It was
Vietnam.
a Cold War, so it was like not really ever happening. I don't know.
It was a Cold War. I just feel like
the Soviet Union was still around.
I think we can safely say that the 70s, we're still deep in the Cold War.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I doubted my. As we know, I don't know anything about history. I think people are pushing back against a lot of different forces, right? So people are kind of a little bit scared, a little bit shell-shocked, a little bit feeling like let down by the promise of the 60s that didn't really materialize. And then in cinema also, there's this pushback against like super realist stuff like Taxi Driver, right? And Scorsese and whatever. So where is that all coming from? I think it's just people want something more. They want something else, right? It's like, it's countercultural. I think there's such a connection to like, I don't know, like we all made the jokes earlier in this episode about like, acid and bell bottoms and hippie stuff. And to me, there's a connection there. Like, we've failed as a society, so we need to move out into the stars and start over again. There's a kind of innocent wish fulfillment happening there.
Almost like mankind or humanity needs a challenge in order to progress as a race, and we've already kind of messed it up on Earth. So maybe there's something out there in the great beyond if we go and look for it.
And there was always sci-fi before the 70s too, the 50s, 60s, 40s. There's tons of great sci-fi from those
Danger,
decades
Will
as well.
Robinson.
Right, but like the 70s, I mean, Star Wars and even Captain Harlock to an extent, it's not like cutting edge technology. The reason it's sci-fi is to set the story far away from Earth, right? It's not because it's like this analysis of technological or scientific ideas, which sci-fi sometimes is, right? It's just like it's a pirate story. It's a kid getting kidnapped by a pirate and being taken away from his lame situation on Earth, right? Star Wars is a long time ago, so we call it sci-fi, but it's really just a fantasy story in a different world, right? So
with spaceships, it's fantasy with spaceships.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm really saying anything, but there's clearly a desire there to just like go out and start over and be in a different world. You can edit all of that out.
Okay. No, I think Matsumoto was taking notes on Robert Louis Stevenson. There's a little bit of Treasure Island running deep in there. Alex, what do you think? Was there anything special about this time period that made it so ripe for this space sci-fi fair?
Yeah, I was basically going to say the same things about Cold War and like space race. So people are just thinking about space. But also that, I mean, it is like the last frontier. And I think people were kind of realizing that, at least the scientists at ExxonMobil were realizing that we're going to be screwed in the year 2000. So I think that in the 70s, everyone was like, in a couple of 100 years. But, it's very optimistic to think that it would be 2,900 the year 2900 where shit goes and hits the fan.
We had another 1,000 years like a runway. There's a long trail. Yeah,
I think everyone knew there was an inkling of a problem like oil shock. So like I think people knew that their way of life wasn't going to continue like without problem.
Not sustainable.
And I think a lot of people maybe wanted to fantasize about leaving the earth behind. And there are still people to this day that fantasize. I think that there's a certain billionaire who would want a space pirate to say, hey boy, you look like you got a good head on your shoulders, and take him.
Or thinks he is that space pirate.
Or thinks he is that space pirate. So I think we still have those people. But yeah, I just think that a lot of people were realizing a lot of things in the 70s, and maybe this is how they were storytelling about how they think the future is going to go.
In a Japanese context, right? Like we talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's so much political commentary actually happening in the early parts of this first volume, like really useless politicians who are only concerned with going to parties and playing golf. And then when, what's his name, Kuzco, the professor guy, gets up and tries to warn them about what's happening, there are all these great panels where all of the politicians are asleep in the background. Not a single one of them.
And they have like the mouths like beaks. They're like,
they look like those little choco ball birds, but like. So there's clearly Matsumoto.
And you notice that there's no women in the government.
Nope.
Oh no, clearly.
They have not. They've made it to
secretary.
They've made it to secretary. Yeah.
Good for her. So clearly Matsumoto is disillusioned by what's going on in Japan, and he's trying to say, "Hey, wake up, young boys, and be manly, and get out there and explore the universe."
That's what I was gonna say. Like, do you guys know in the 70s, like, what was the top issue in Japan? Or because I didn't look it up. I was
Not off the top of my head.
No.
So the student protests happened in what, like 68 or 69?
Yeah, that was the 60s. So this would have been almost a decade after that. So I mean, you had a few smoldering embers afterwards or whatnot, but this is after the time of Mishima Yukio. This is a little bit of a different era. But I think Matsumoto, he came of age during that time, so I think he still carried the counter-revolutionary embers or whatnot.
You can feel it.
You can feel it. Yeah, it's still alive and well in his heart. He would still be. Oh gosh, he'd be a relatively young man at this time. 30, not even 30 yet. So I think a lot of that is coming through in the pages. And I don't know how much has changed since then.
Well, it's kind of hard to imagine such an overtly political statement being made like in a Shonen Jump comic. For
These days.
Yeah, these days.
These days, yeah,
This
exactly.
being this transparent of like literally having the politicians be imbeciles and be this ridiculously portrayed. Yeah.
And self-absorbed too, right? So you have like this
Yeah.
alien race comes and inserts this black disc
Orb
in the
thing,
orb,
right?
right? Like into the middle of downtown Tokyo, and they're
Yeah.
like, okay, so it's not really doing anything. Let's go and build a town around it. We'll turn it
Yeah.
into an attraction and whatnot. I mean,
They're like, oh, it's not harming us now, so we don't need to take any action.
I feel like that's a commentary about a lot of things.
The elephant in the room, the elephant in the city.
So not only do I question would big publishers publish a story like that, but also is there an appetite for that kind of story among the readership? Are people looking for that kind of political commentary that was in this story? I wonder, right? I have a pet theory that part of the reason Chainsaw Man caught on with so many people is that it's actually like kind of sly commentary about how shitty life is for a lot of young people these days. So maybe there is appetite, but there just aren't many stories that are willing
Well,
to
did you watch the last season of Agretzko? I like that
Actually, no.
series.
No, I didn't. What happened in there?
It is like overtly, she runs to be in the diet, in the national
wow.
diet. And she runs in the Party of Anger, which is
would be
a
good.
party comprised of people who are angry and scream about how much injustice there is in the world and like trying to get everyone else who's complacent to get angry and trying to get everyone to get angry. And Haida ends up like, I don't know if have you watched any of this? Like, do you know Haida?
No,
He's
I
a
watched
hyena.
like
I didn't.
very, very early,
Anyway,
like probably the first season.
her hyena boyfriend, he kind of loses his. Actually, he stood up for something correct, and then he lost his job, and then he can't get back on his feet, and he ends up homeless in a net cafe.
Wow.
Turning into a net. I mean, so it's like so overtly like all these young people are stuck homeless
That's
in a
actually
net
pretty cool.
cafe. With and just staring at screens.
Wow, yeah.
And then Retsuko gets an opportunity because she's so good at screaming with rage about issues that she becomes like a symbol for the young people to not stay silent, to like start screaming and like
That's
get
awesome.
angry. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, like if you thought that it's not possible to do overtly political, like I was very surprised because like the other seasons were more subtle, and then this was like just straight out like we're making her run for national diet.
Agretzko is like a modern hero, a folk hero. That's actually pretty cool. Wow, cool. Thank you for mentioning.
Anyway, you
I had
should
no
watch
idea.
Agretzko. It's
Yeah,
really
I guess
good.
I should. That sounds really cool.
Whoa.
We learned something new today.
That's half the point of this podcast. Okay, well, in addition to the hardline commentary, how else do you think this series and Matsumoto's other works influence manga, not just sci-fi, but anything in general? Are there anything else that you can see that is now standard in the industry that was originally pioneered by Matsumoto or some of his works?
I mean, it's hard for me to say having only read this first volume, but I could see influences in like the early Ghibli movies have a sort of somewhat similar plot structure. Like a child gets kind of spirited away. Oh, fuck. I didn't
Literally.
even mean to. I swear I didn't even mean to do that.
It's okay. We all do it
But you know what I
sometimes.
mean? So that kind of thing. But I mean, that was probably happening before Matsumoto. I also felt like every JRPG has something to, owe to his kind of storytelling. Like a little boy from a village joins this band of merry adventurers where one of them is like super cool and charismatic and the rest are all kind of like lovable weirdos. So Alex, you mentioned Dragon Quest earlier, but I can think of stuff like, I don't know, the early Breath of Fire games, some Final Fantasy stuff. So I think just the ripple effects, right, of so many people who went on to be creatives in Japan probably grew up reading his stuff, right? So So I can't tell you the exact ways in which he influenced people, but there's no doubt that he had a big influence on like thousands of influential people.
Totally.
Probably still influencing people to this day, right?
Yeah. Alex, what about you? Anything that you noticed?
I think this question is hard for me because I'm not like super knowledgeable about sci-fi. So it's hard for me to tell like what had never been done or like what was something new. I mean, I've just like always heard the like trope of like, you know, man who's like maverick is like head of a space vessel, goes to a planet, finds hot lady, she becomes immediately like indebted to him for all of her life.
That's like every episode of Star Trek, which is out before this.
So like maybe that was just so I guess it wasn't revolutionary. Also like I like how all the lazy men, or not lazy, I mean the crewmen.
The crew.
They're in like kind of cosplay pirate uniforms that are not very well thought out. And then the lady, what's her name? The random lady.
Oh, Yuki. Yeah.
She's like in a skin tight, like Star Trek type bodysuit.
She's in a bodysuit, yes.
And she's got like a space gun. So she's
got the
like,
spandex.
Yeah, she looks
suit.
like she's from like any sci-fi thing in like the 70s or 60s, whatever. But then it's just funny how like none of the other crew are in this like cool spandex uniform. It was just ordered for her.
They only have budget for one. Well, Captain Harlock kind of has a similar get up too, right?
I guess it was like to match his.
And Queen Emeraldus has it as well.
Yeah, she does.
There's a few people, but you're right. There's definitely like, oh gosh, the budget for wardrobe is clearly there's a couple of digits more in her zone. Okay, I think another thing that really stood out to me is, and I know that Gundam predates this, so that would probably be like the series that started the space giant robots, and there's not robots here, it's spaceships and whatnot. But
when did Gundam get started, do you know?
That is a really good question. I wish I had.
It's like
I had
60s or something.
Wow, okay.
Amuro, that is something that we should get into.
Like, I mean, I've watched a bit of it, but
that's 60s.
And it takes it in a different direction too, but that's also really highly political, or at least it's deeply well thought out. You have all these different factions and whatnot, and it's a series that spans decades, right, with different people working on it. But that takes it more into the space robots fighting in space, which is closer to Evangelion and whatnot, whereas this is spaceships fighting in space with space parts. So I feel like it's you have to draw a distinction.
Although some of the
two.
spaceships are controlled by robots remotely.
This is true. I feel
well,
like
one question. So what about this? So the we've joked about it a lot, but like the whole concept of having, you know, simultaneously you've got this very grand, very like, you know, planet-threatening adventure story that's happening, but then at the same time you've got this cast of like comedic losers who are like the scenes shift back and forth between like, now we must save these people and the planet is at risk.
Space
and then the next
opera
scene
and
is
comedy
like,
relief, yeah.
Yeah, like, but ridiculous, like slapstick, you know.
I feel like that
comedy.
slapstick is so of that time, though.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I think so too.
Okay,
Yeah.
so was every series just doing that anyway? I just wonder about that combination
I
of
just
elements.
feel like
right?
every series that I've read from like this time period in Japanese,
that was
they
just in
always
the
have
water.
like weird slapstick moments, but maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I just read the wrong thing.
No,
No, I think it sounds to me like you read the right thing.
I think we all read the right thing. Yeah, I think that was what was going on in the 70s. I think that's what people wanted. And I think the overarching story is what kept people coming back for more. And I feel like that even Matsumoto owes a debt to Flash Gordon, which is one of the real pioneers of those space operas. I mean, because that's all this is basically. So I think what he maybe did is he took what was going on in the Flash Gordon scene and then kind of localized it for a Japanese audience, brought in some nationalistic undertones and whatnot, and really sold it well, because he's definitely had a fandom ever since. This is something that I wanted to ask you both as well. It's been about 50 years since this came out. Almost 50 years. It's incredible to think about. And then Matsumoto painted a picture of an Earth that has become so obsessed with creature comforts that they refuse to recognize that it's about to be overrun by an alien race who seeks to destroy them and take over their planet. Has anything changed today, or if there was secretly a race of aliens who are trying to take over our planet, would we have the same passive reaction that the one world government had in this book? Alex, what do you think?
So I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie WALL-E.
Yeah,
I love that's my favorite Pixar movie. Actually,
I think that the existence of that movie says that times have not changed because we're still imagining the world, the future, to be a future where we're all doing nothing, and there's grave issues that are destroying everything, and we're just sitting idly because it's easier. So unfortunately, I think that this is like kind of a theme that doesn't seem to be going away in the history of humanity. And I don't know if it ever will go away because, I mean, we have a huge planet-ending issue now. And
got a couple of them.
And we're just, our one world government has not happened yet, but I guess even if
I
it
spend
did,
8 hours a day in Zoom meetings. That's my way of contributing to the urgent
but I guess
issues.
even if this one world government happened, I guess they would all be men and obsessed with golf. So
and sleeping at every opportunity.
And sleeping
That actually just sounds like the world we currently live in to an extent, so I don't know, would we be any more or less passive? I think we're being exactly the passive Fuyaketa Ningen that the manga describes, right? We're just kind of sitting around watching terrible things happen every day. And we need a space pirate to come and take us away and show us how to be brave heroes.
I guess we all need to become space pirates.
I mean, that's clearly what Matsumoto is trying to convince us to be. So if you're not familiar with this story, basically you have Earth, what is the year? It's 2977 AD. So it's far past any of us have ever experienced, even those of you with time machines, because you can't go that far in the future.
And we can't even figure out if this is actually going to happen, because we're not going to live that long.
We're not going to live that long, so we don't know. It's 1,000 years in the future, almost. But basically there's this alien race called the Mazon who are trying to take over Earth, to colonize it, turning it into like Homeworld 2 for themselves and their race. We don't really know what they're going to do once they have it. Not as far as Volume 1 goes. You just know that they burst into flames. It's a little bit of an incubus.
They are highly flammable. So I wonder about their choice in choosing Earth, a place where flames happen pretty regularly.
Maybe they should pick something that's a little bit less combustible. I don't know. Yeah. But the question that I wanted to ask you is, do you think that this could possibly be an allegory for something in his universe, in his times, in his time period? What do you think Matsumoto was getting at with this?
I don't know, was colonizing Mars also an idea back then? Because that was the first thing that came into my mind.
Yeah, that's always been
colonizing Mars. It could be.
Because they're literally called Mazone.
I gotta say, every time I read that, I kept thinking of Amazon.
Or Amazons. Yeah, I thought of the Amazons because they are women shaped for some reason, and they're all the same woman shape, except one of them has dark hair.
And can you spoil this? Eventually, you once you read the end of the series, you find out that the Mazon, the queen comes up, Queen Raphisia. She actually is an Earth woman originally.
Yes.
Oh.
And she and Tori-san had some traumatic history together.
That's why those tears, they keep flowing. The story is deep. It is a deep story.
Surprisingly.
I mean, you do find out they're among us. So
they are indeed, yeah.
Sus. I think there's an allegory happening there that I don't understand what it is. I think Matsumoto had some interesting vision there, but it was lost on me. Why are they only women? Why are they referred to every single time by their full name, which is women who burst into flame like Could we not come up with a shorthand for that?
It's so memorable how
is.
Dramatically they burst into flame.
Did either of you also find it difficult to follow the scenes where they burst into flames and kill people? Because like when I first read it and like Tadashi's dad is like getting assassinated by the woman who burst into flames like paper, I had no idea what really happened. It was like he was meeting.
It's not even like paper. It's like combustion. It's like very.
It's like gasoline, burn baby. It's wild.
To me, it looked like a pile of sand getting blown away in the wind.
But did you see the panel where there's a little tummy? Like they're screaming as they burn.
Yeah, and it's a little hard to follow there. So there's a lot going on in this story.
There is indeed. Okay. Speaking of a lot going on right now, for a series entitled Captain Harlock, which in Japanese, or in the Japanese series, in the original series, they romanized it Herlock, and then later when they released it in the U.S., it was they stylized it as Harlock. The dialogue is very much unfiltered 1970s fare. You could even say that it borders on non-politically correct. As a reader in the year 2023, which is where we are today, what did you think of just all the stuff that comes with, like, otoko nara nanchara? Like, there's a lot of, like, if you're a man, you'll do this. Like, do you still hear that? Do you still experience that? Is that something that's still out in manga today?
I mean, I don't experience anyone telling me to be a man, but
everyone's given up on me a long time.
Oh no!
Like, what is this something that we've gotten past, or like, what was it like experiencing this? Because I don't really run into this in the things that I read today.
I haven't encountered it in any. No, I can't think of anything recently. I think now people are much more open to the concept of being kind of gender fluid. I feel like now a lot of heroes are heroines, right? Like, so female protagonists who are, way more heroic than anyone
at least
in
in
story.
Ghibli movies. There are
Yeah, but in a lot of manga as well. Or maybe it's just a lot of the manga that I read. No, I think this is very much trapped in the past, and that was one of the things that I liked least about this first volume, was just like very, very strong gender stereotyping happening for no clear reason.
Yeah,
so
just trope after trope. Alex, what did you think? Was it
like, I don't know, the gender stereotyping didn't bother me that much, just because, like, I don't know, I feel like it's the 70s, so okay, but like, I don't know, actually, I was most shocked by the, like, pig dialogue that went on, like, very long.
Yes. About how funny, fat, and it was very long.
Yeah, about how fat the Fukucho is. Yeah, Fukusencho is. And I'm like, was this funny in the 70s to, like, go on and on about how this, like, little cartoonish man is so fat and, like, a pig and, like, pig-like, and, like, she's, like, laughing at him because he's ugly like a pig or something like that. Like,
yeah, that was weird. And then he gets all up in his feelings.
I didn't enjoy it at all. I mean, it's not like I enjoy all the women being like super slender, thin, like
the 1970s supermodel.
And they're just like obviously there to look at. And also that he imagines that even in the year 2977, there'd be no women in government.
Yeah, that's a little depressing.
Like, I mean, that was a little bit like, when I saw it, I was like, well, it's funny how in sci-fi and stuff, like, no one ever can envision a diverse future. It's very hard, apparently, to, like, think about diversity of people being represented anywhere.
Yeah, very.
That's actually, I have to put in a shout out to The Expanse at this point in time, because I have never seen the TV show, but I've read almost all of the Expanse series of books. And they're set like in the pretty near future, where humans are just starting to move beyond our immediate planet, and Mars is colonized. But it's extremely good at the diversity thing. So I think it's finally happening, but it sure did take a long time to get here.
Yeah.
it's
Anyway, read
it's
The
always fun
Expanse if you
about
haven't.
it.
Those books are cool.
I will.
Yeah.
No, good at drawing ships, bad at imagining a future with anything other than men.
And also,
playing
like,
a lead
maybe
role.
Japanese men. I don't even know if they're all Japanese. Who knows? But they're
Well,
all
they
speaking
specifically
Japanese.
talk about how they're speaking Japanese at
Yeah.
some point.
Oh,
so
this is true too. Although
he
I
also had grand visions for
What was
the
it
future of
that
Japan.
series that everyone was speaking Chinese or allegedly speaking Chinese?
Was it Firefly?
Oh yeah, Firefly. Yeah, yeah. Like in the
Firefly.
future, like we're all speaking Chinese. In the future, we're all speaking Japanese. Apparently,
yeah. What was the 70s? You know.
Blade Runner.
anything could have happened.
Anything could happen. It was a gamble either way. To his credit though, he did put out Queen Esmeraldas, which is another series with a very strong female protagonist.
Yeah, I was like really wanting to read that because I'm like, okay, now I'm intrigued about what's happening here with this
Wait, wasn't
bird
that
is
the
crying
name?
and stuff.
Yeah, that was the name of the ship in this
Yeah.
book. So
Well,
you're saying
yeah.
that's another expanded
Series.
universe?
It is another expanded. You see a
cool.
character who looks exactly like. Well, she kind of makes a cameo at. I think it's just after Volume 1 where he goes back to the space hideout that he had because you find out like he used to chill with this other crew. He ran with this other crew back in the day, and they're like all kind of dead now. And he's like, yeah, you know. I don't really talk about my feelings, but Tadashi, if you're a man, then maybe one day I'll tell you about my feelings, but not today.
Only if you're a man, though.
Only if
Yeah.
you're a man. Press this button anytime. I'll tell you about my feelings.
I'm actually looking at the page right now where he's like, Kimi ga otoko nara, honto no otoko nara, kanarazu.
But I love how like dainty his eyes are. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. He's very flirtatious. He's giving him like Bambi eyes as he's saying this.
Well, he's
And
talking
then
directly to
Tadashi's
the reader.
reaction is just like,
Let me. Oh man. Okay. Well, this leads to a very important question. So, put yourself in Tadashi's shoes. If you were Tadashi, would you go aboard the Arcadia? Your father has just been brutally assassinated by the women who burst into flames like paper. You've got the president of the world being like, hey, you know, I kind of need you to use your dad's system to create a new golf course. You would have a beautiful setup life right there. Or you could go off with this kind of sketchy guy who's got a cool ship. Maybe it could be fun. Would you go aboard? Yes or no? Alex?
Definitely, yes. Just like I told you, the way that he phrased his like invitation was like very mysterious and flirty, kind of. And then also there was so many
Flirty
shots.
and fun.
Yeah, it is very flirty and fun. And also you get like free room and board, and unlimited rations apparently because you can just eat like 5 times what a normal crew member would eat.
And that's fine. That's okay.
and that's
yeah.
fine.
You're
That's
just a
fine. Eat your
growing
share.
boy. Here's some more. Here's some more space food.
And there's a space grandma taking care of you in that regard. So you get to have bath time. It seems like a pretty good ship. What about you, Jason?
I mean, 1,000%, especially given the situation back on Earth. But I more so than like, would I go on board the ship? That's kind of a no-brainer. I'm also really impressed with the way Tadashi handles it. Right? Like he's so nonchalant about the whole thing. He's just like, I guess I'll see what this is all about. And then at one point, someone asks him like, so which department do you want to work in?
Oh,
And
at
he's
the
like,
end of his trial period?
yeah, he's like, I don't know. I don't even know what the departments are. Everyone who works here is a weird loser. And he's just like, he's just so like
Speaking
laid
truth.
back about it. It's like Harlock has to go out of his way to like convince him, and Tadashi's just like, whatever, I guess I'll hang out.
I mean,
here. It's like-
teenagers, right?
Yeah.
it's so accurate, and I think that would be exactly how I would have acted as well. I would have been like, whatever, I guess I'll hang out here for a while. I got nothing better to do.
Can you imagine if like companies operated this way where they picked up people and they're like, yeah, you can work for us. Look, just hang out, do your thing, find your way around the company. You know, we're still learning about you. You're still learning about us. See what you see, and we'll pick a place for you to work later.
It could never happen. I could never imagine a company. You know what I couldn't imagine even more is a company doing that with hundreds of young people at the same time.
At the same time, every year on April 1st. Dude.
It's really hard to imagine.
Oh gosh, no.
A society adopting that attitude to its workforce.
No.
And then once you've had that job for many years, they're like, "Why don't you do a different job that you have
Here it is.
experience
Here's
in?"
your new job.
Yeah.
Also hard to imagine men growing old and lumpish in those roles and then sleeping most of the day away and getting drunk when they are awake.
No, that's an improbable
Very hard
future.
to imagine. Yeah, it could never happen in real life.
Okay, speaking of improbable futures, how would you rate this book? Jason, you go first.
I would give this book 5 out of a possible 6 women who burst into flame like paper.
HOTT!
It made me laugh a lot. It made me stop in my tracks and take in how fucking cool this moment is, and a lot of it is just amazing to look at. It's got some little bumps on the surface here and there. Like this storytelling isn't super tight. It's a little bit repetitive, but yeah, like and just for me personally, for a history lesson, this might be, this is the oldest manga I've read in a long time. So really glad I read it. I would totally love to read more of Matsumoto's stuff in the near future. So yeah, I thought it was fun.
That's a strong recommendation. Alex, what about you? How would you rate Volume 1?
So I don't want to undermine your judgment, Mark, but was this the best one to read first? Was my wondering.
Maybe not. Maybe
We're supposed to be
was
rating the manga, not Mark.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. You can rate me.
Because I was more invested in wanting to know about the early days of Harlock and the bird. Rather than this kid. I mean,
No, totally.
yeah, it's and the alcoholic alien woman, I did like her, but then I felt like she would get more of a role in the beginning when he found her. I just wanted to know more about how this team formed, what happened, what have they been through. I feel like I would like this book better after I knew, or actually I'd rather read that instead of this. But I did enjoy the spaceship shots, so if you want a good nostalgic 70s manga that's got a lot of action. I mean, there's a lot happening. And it is intriguing to know what these women who burst into flames, how long have they been in Earth? What's their agenda? That's interesting. Is just, I think I'm more interested in how the crew got together and how this all started. I want that origin story.
No, that's a great point. And to be fair, I picked Captain Harlock because it was the first in that series, other than Uchu Senkan Yamato, which is completely separate. I don't think we can attribute that fully to Matsumoto. But Queen Esmeralda, Galaxy Express 39, that all came just a little bit after. So this is the first one. So I think he was just kind of making shit up as he went along.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he clearly was.
Clearly, yeah.
I mean, yes, but I don't know. I want to know that story. So.
I do too. Now that you mention it, that actually
it's
sounds
a deep
awesome.
stuff. Maybe that's his multi-marketing campaign. There's just throwing storylines.
He's look at these cool characters. Want to know more about them? Buy my new book.
Buy my new book. And they all came out in so his most prolific period is the late 70s, early 80s, and that's when they're all coming out. So it's literally in the same month, Galaxy Express 39 debuts right after this.
Whoa, really?
So yeah. I mean, this comes out first, and then that comes out, and then what is it? Queen Esmeralda comes out a few years later and whatnot. But it's all the same characters coming in and out, and even some of them have the same names, but they're not exactly the same character because it's before the internet, so you can't really complain about it. People
No one will notice.
No one will notice.
No one
right?
notice.
It's just good characters. Okay, but how would you... So it's not the best one to go with, but would you recommend this to anyone?
Would I recommend it anyway? I recommend it to somebody who is curious about how manga was in the 70s. I'm that person, and there are other people like me. It's not everyone, though, definitely. So you have to be ready for alternative storytelling, alternative paneling, and seeing that is really cool. And it gives a very cool nostalgic vibe when you're reading. And there are people that enjoy that, and then there are people that absolutely hate that. If you absolutely hate it, just don't touch this book.
My gosh, that's such a good point. When I originally picked it, so I picked this up when I've the second time I moved to Japan, and it was so off-putting to me the first time I tried to read it. In Japanese, like, the pacing is incredibly slow. Two, a lot of the characters especially the crew on the ship, speak in dialects that I had no idea how to parse in my mind. Yeah, this is like over almost 15 years ago. And
I did think it was like kind of cute that they had dialects.
It's cute now, but I was like, what is this person? I can't, like, I would just give up on it. And it took me probably like a year to get through it the first time. And then after I did, I started to fall in love. But it's definitely, there's a few hurdles in there.
Yeah, new Japanese learners, maybe this is not the book for you if you're trying to read manga in Japanese for the first time.
That's a good point, especially that
katakana lady.
The katakana, that was rough too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if I was teaching a college course on like the history of Japanese pop culture or something,
that would be a pretty sweet course.
This is a good one.
I took a course like that in university.
Oh, cool.
That's why I'm a multi-billionaire successful businessman now.
Tell us more about this course.
No, but I think anyone with a serious interest in like the history of manga, the history of just Japanese pop culture in general, like Matsumoto's influence was incredibly huge. So it's good as a history lesson. If you're interested in modern manga and modern manga tropes, I would say this might be a bit jarring. So that's who I would recommend it to.
Absolutely. So for fans of history, this has been Space Pirate Captain Harlock Volume 1. We've talked about this for a while now. Next, we're going to move on to a new genre cycle in our podcast. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be reviewing next week?
So the theme is sports manga, and then I came up with a manga that I wanted to read, which apparently has been referred to as a sports manga. It's about dancing. It's called Dansuru, which is like, I think it's a French word, because ballet, or is ballet mostly Russian? I don't know. But anyway, I'm not a ballet connoisseur.
Well, the word ballet is French, I think. We'll find out.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Dance.
It's by Georgi Asakura.
Cool.
So I don't know what his story is. I'm gonna look up what his story is and why his name is George. But yeah, I'm excited for you guys to read it.
In the meantime, please email us if you have anything you want to say to us. You can email us at mangaroospodcast@gmail.com, and you can follow us on social media if that's a thing that you do at Mangaroos.
Absolutely. And thanks for hanging out with us. This has been an extra special episode of Mangaroos, and we look forward to meeting you here next week.
Wahoo!
Bye.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.
Hello and welcome to Mangaroos.
Wait. Boo. You can't say Mangaroos.
Mangaroos. Do I have to say it like that?
Let's try it. Yeah, let's try
there's
it.
an official pronunciation.
There is now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mangaroos.
I cringe.
Mangaroos.
Yeah,
Mangaroos.
every time I say Mangaroos, I'm like, so let's try it again.
Okay.
Go.
Hello and welcome to Mangaroos. I'm here with my friends.
Hey, it's me, the woman who burns like paper, Jason.
And
I'm another one. Damn it! You took my
Did I steal your thing?
I thought you wouldn't go with a woman who burns like paper.
Let's try to get. I'll give you that one. You got to take that one.
okay, we're gonna do this.
Now I don't know what I'm gonna be.
Literal thing. The woman who burns like paper.
Leave this in. Put this at the end of the episode.
This will be the
what you do
blooper.
is you cut this out and you put it at the end of the episode
after the
hardcore
piano
fans.
After the piano outro. Okay.
Okay. What else can I be?
An alcoholic space alien.
Well, I wanted to be one of the drunken idiots lying in the corridor, but I don't know what any of them are
I thought you were
called.
gonna be aboard the Arcadian or Arcadia. Sorry.
What are they called? The people on Earth? How do they refer to it in the?
Fuyaketa ningen domo.
Yeah, fuyaketa ningen domo. So
soft, I guess, just like too
soft.
soft.
It's not that good.
Soft modern man.
Soft modern man.
That's actually a pretty accurate description.
This is all in the podcast.
Or a man who loves to golf too much.
I am a political figure.
Live to golf.
Can I be a goro goro shiteru yatsu?
Yeah, goro. You can be a goro.
Or maybe you haven't gotten up from your
Jason.
bed in the last year. Your high-tech space bed.
The assistant captain who's always busy. All right, whatever. We'll figure something out.